Good afternoon, everybody. Uh, Today we'll be discussing the laboratory optimization plan and a balanced scorecard. First of all, the essence of planning is a strategic plan, an ongoing management activity designed to provide the data, analytical components, and decision elements required to continuously manage an organization. The strategic plan is a fluid plan with multiple built-in feedback loops that allow or demand that everything from the organization budget and projects to its goals and purpose be continuously updated. A strategic plan is also essential when implementing a major new or modified business activity, such as developing an outreach program for anatomical pathology, or when we bring in a new area of test or instrument, or planning a separate offsite laboratory for outpatients. So, strategic planning is the foundation when we start with any project, or even when we are adding to an existing project a new plan. The word fluid here is very important because when we make a plan, it's very important that we take feedback from every stakeholders. So in our case, when we talk of laboratory, we have the technical staff, we have the pathologist, we have our doctors, we have the management team, we have our patients. So everybody's feedback is important to make it a solid plan. Okay. Before we start a plan, we should know what our goals are. So, what is the plan all about? Our goals in the laboratory is accuracy of results. We need to minimize the cost. We need to have effective communication. We change the operational culture of the laboratory, optimize our HMIs, improve laboratory safety. We should have staff satisfaction, clinician and patient satisfaction, and getting a laboratory dashboard. Uh, all other terms are very easy to understand, but what it does it mean that we need to change the operational culture of the laboratory? We live in a world of data science, and it's required like that. When we make decisions, our decisions should be data driven and evidence based. So, for example, when I say that my I'm very busy and I need more staff, I go to the management with this complaint that I'm very busy, I have staff, they will not give me. I need to prove it based on the number of tests that I am doing, and the complicate how complicated the test is, how many technicians I'm having in per shift. So this is called as FT calculations. And when I take my data along with me, we definitely the management is more convinced that okay, she needs a staff. What does evidence base means? That laboratory science is evolving and it has been existing for many years. So there is evidence available whenever you want to make a decision, whether I want to buy a new machine, whether I want to add a new test, or we have a problem, an error in the laboratory. There is always huge number of studies that is available, which we can have. We can when look into. We have CLSI guidelines, we have CAP guidelines, we have ASAP guidelines. We can look at them and come to a conclusion, or come to a basically a decision which is evidence based, rather than just getting up and saying that I want to do this or this one wants to do this. So when it is data driven and evidence based, for sure our decisions will be more accurate and correct. I spoke about laboratory dashboard. Now this is just a sample dashboard that was created for a microbiology lab. If you look here, this is the hours that are there, like from 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 11, so on an hourly basis, how many samples we receive. So I'll get a graph like this. Okay. So this is a live dashboard. This is a live dashboard that we will have. And then if you look here, between 12 to 1 p.m., we have a peak of sample. Okay. And this is the basic dashboard that I have. Now I look at our ER turnaround time. Okay. Now between 8 to 10 a.m., 10 to 12 p.m. Okay. See how many number of samples were within the threshold. Our threshold is 2 hours, right? So I see here that between 12 to 1 p.m., we had one sample which was crossing the threshold. Now what happens when I have a dashboard? I can check. Okay, see between 12 to 1, because the number of samples had increased suddenly, so probably that could be the reason that we have crossed the turnaround time, the threshold of 2 hours. So this is what I called as data driven evidence based decision making, and this is the kind of dashboard that we should have for each section in the laboratory. Again, this is another dashboard. where we see the daily samples received in microbiology, how much in each section, how many urine, how many stool, how many cultures on a monthly basis. So all this data when we have, we can make better decisions for the laboratory. When we have a plan, we should have a mission, we should have a vision that what we are actually planning to do. We are putting up a plan, but for what? So the mission for the laboratory would be that we stand united to provide every clinician and patient with high quality, value added services and results using progressive and innovative methods of continuous improvement and professional development. Now, all other words are very familiar, but what is this called as quality, high quality, value added services? What is value added services? It's been highly spoken about in all the industries these days, and similarly, it is also spoken in healthcare industry. I'll give you a small example. Like today morning, I had a urine sample which showed numerous WBC, and there was no culture requested for that sample. Now, my duty is that the urine analysis I'll just process and give the result to the clinician. That is my job. Okay. But what we did is that we just called the clinician and asked doctor, would you like to add a culture because it looks like infection to me? And the doctor said, yes, please go ahead, do a culture. I'll call the patient and get the payment cleared. Okay. Now, what has happened because of just this one small service that we have provided to to the doctor, the patient's turnaround time of the report has reduced by 24 hours because otherwise the patient has to come next day and give the sample. So we are giving our services, but we are just adding little value to those services. And there are many opportunities like this in the laboratory where we can give value added services. Of course, the vision is to be CAP certified laboratory. And our slogan will be standing together for patient care, right report at right time and at right cost. When we start a plan, it always starts with a SWOT analysis. So what is a SWOT analysis? We look at our strength, we look at our weakness, what opportunities we have, and what threat we have in the laboratory so we can go ahead with our plan. There are other analysis which is called as pastel analysis. There is CPM matrix which are more complex. The SWOT analysis is something basic that is required to put up any plan you want to start with. Let us look at the strength of PSH laboratory. We are a premium super specialty hospital laboratory having a loyal patient base. We are the only hospital with a cath lab. We have a huge dialysis unit. We have the only private hospital with chemotherapy facilities and onco facilities. When we have a super specialty hospital, it's very easy for the laboratory to add special tests. We learn a lot. There is a lot of development. It's never a routine thing that we are just processing the routine samples and going on. The workload is the work is very very interesting when you work for a super specialty hospital. If you look at our lab space, it's a huge space compared to other laboratories in Bahrain. It's a huge private lab, and if you have section wise division in the laboratory, we don't have just a core lab where all the machines are put side by side and one technician is doing everything. We have support from the top management. They are very dedicated to patient care and staff empowerment and a very strong academic inclination. The 20 years that I have worked in BSH, the management has always supported me to publish research papers. We have published almost 7 research papers in microbiology. We are the only private hospital lab in Bahrain who has published these papers. And thanks to Dr. Naja and Dr. Qasim for always supporting me. And even Dr. Qasim has paid for these papers many a times. So there is a strong academic inclination. Whenever you go to them with any idea, they are always there to support you. I haven't seen this kind of support in other hospitals that I worked. We have highly qualified technicians. I would like to call them laboratory scientists. We have 5 technicians with master's degree, one with MPhil, one is ongoing master. She'll complete next year. Our staff is very resilient and obedient. I have seen them working for like 14 hours on weekends with lot of family issues, but they still keep going. We have 14 technicians with bachelor's degree, and some are from CAP and ASCP and NABL certified laboratories. We have 2 pathologists. Most private labs in Bahrain have only 1 pathologist. We have state of art equipment. Our management has never said no whenever we wanted to add a new machine or a new technology in the lab. We were the first lab to have MIC testing in microbiology, first lab to have an open PCR system, and so on. We have ample resources. Supplies could be an issue, but it's never that we have to cut corners to run a test or things like that. We have a good well in market whenever BSH is always a benchmark for other private hospitals in Bahrain. And we are a potential lab for reference and research. As I said, we have already published 7 papers. We have a PCR lab where past 15 years we have been ongoing research on para TB. So, what are the weakness of BSH lab? I know it's a huge list, but let me start with in past 20 years, I have seen at least one major error in the laboratory every day. There is lack of sample barcoding. LIS is a major drawback. We have poor coordination with the IT department. Our staff attrition rates are very high. Ideally, it should be less than 50%. Our attrition rate is more than 20%. We have clustered organizational structure and there is lack of reporting hierarchy. Usually, what happens, there is a reporting hierarchy, like a junior technician runs the sample, the senior technician rechecks it. There is a supervisor who is going to, actually approve the report. And out of that, the highly abnormal or the panic reports are usually approved by the pathologist. There are crucial staff which we need in future is clinical pathologist, a quality officer, phlebotomist, laboratory receptionist. We need why phlebotomist, because the thing is that yeah, usually phlebotomists are undergrads and they just do a certificate course in laboratory technology and they become phlebotomists. Usually technicians who are there, bench technicians, they are usually graduates, and technologists are postgraduates. Sorry, postgraduates. So this is the reason, and they are trained for phlebotomy of newborn babies and geriatric patients. They are specialized in their work. Many a times it happens that MSc technologist, she tells, why am I wasting my time collecting blood of the patient? So especially when they go for home collection. Sorry. There is lack of formal training for the junior staff. The training recommended in the laboratory is quite formal, that application specialist should be involved, the pathologist should be involved, the supervisor should be involved, and documentation should be there. There is poor intra and interdepartmental communication. Sorry. Inter means within the department, we don't have regular meetings where we can share our problems. Intra-departmental means with other departments, like we don't have communication with the cardiology department or the pediatric department or the onco department. It's very important that we call the clinicians in the lab, and we have a face-to-face talk with them, that we get to know each other, so that many issues can be sorted out, rather than raising a complaint, and there is constant friction between the nurses and the technicians, or the doctors and the technicians. So this can be resolved when we have good communication. Of course, about strategic plan and quality improvement plan is not there. There is excessive redirection of test to reference laboratories. Lab insurance policies are not streamlined. Sorry, there's excess inventory and excess expired items in the lab. Lab reception needs to be organized. Lab reception is the face of the laboratory where the patients come, and it's highly unorganized. Very poor customer service. There is excess manual documentation, and of course, phone calls is excessive number of phone calls. What are the opportunities in BSH lab at present? The histopathology and microbiology is equipped to start accepting samples from other labs. We have a state of the art, well set histo and microbiology department. Our PCR lab is an open system. It has high potential to be a reference lab for PCR, because we can run a lot of tests. Home phlebotomy services, though all the technicians are upset about it, but this is a service offered only by BSH hospital, and it is free. So this is a service that which we can actually expand these services. What are the threats to the BSH lab? Is we have low cost CAP certified laboratories opening up in Bahrain. We have a small market share, and our patients are very demanding. As I said, laboratory decisions must be evidence-based, either CAP, ASCP, CLSR guidelines, right from the organizational structure, laboratory staffing, of course, to the SOP. You name it, and you can go to the net and search that. There are hundreds and thousands of research papers you will get. This is exactly from where the guidelines are formed by CAP. So how does a CAP come up with guidelines? Because they have huge team sitting there who will research on these topics, and then they come up with these guidelines. Sorry again. So let's look at the present organizational structure. We have two pathologists, we have 19 technicians and two secretary. One is a consultant, one is a specialist pathologist. We have a main lab, which is like a core lab, and everything is mixed up there: reception, biochemistry, hematology, serology, LMRA, home collection, RIFA. We have one supervisor, one senior technician, and 10 junior technicians, and two medical secretaries, with a workload of 4,000 to 5,000 samples per month. This is what I meant by clustered organizational structure. Ideally, when we started in 2003, we had one fixed person at the reception, we had one fixed person in biochemistry, one technician fixed for hematology, one for serology. I was there for microbiology, there was one for histopathology, and of course, we have one for PCR lab. But right now, what is happening? There is no one single person who is responsible for reception, biochemistry, hematology, serology, even LMRA and RIFA. Everybody is rotating, and nobody knows what is happening. Like when we ask, they say, I was not on duty on that day. The other person says, I was not on duty on that day. It's very difficult to track because there is no single person responsible for any section in the laboratory. Histopathology, we have two junior technicians with a sample load of 200 to 300 samples per month. In microbiology, we have a proper hierarchy. We have one supervisor, one senior, one junior, with 2,000 to 3,000 samples per month. PCR, we have one in charge, one junior technician with 300 to 400 samples per month. And in the RIFA lab, we have one junior technician. So, what is the proposed organizational structure that I'm proposing is that we have just now added one lab supervisor. We have one senior technician. We should have one senior technician for biochemistry and hematology and serology. One person to manage the reception and the home collections and phlebotomy services. We'll be forming a core team. So these six people will be the core team in the laboratory. Whenever there is issue, we will have, like, in the core team meets, takes a decision based on the guidelines, and then it is distributed to everybody in the laboratory. Staffing should be based on FT calculations. These are bit complex, but it is we have done already in microbiology. It takes into consideration number of tests we are doing, time required per test, number of hours a technician is available in the lab, and also non-technical work that is involved. This makes sure that no staff in the laboratory is overstressed and no staff is underutilized. So it's very important to know that how your staff is performing, what is the productivity of the staff in the laboratory. Merging the sections and cross training is also very important. When we started with lab in 2003, I remember that microbiology had very less samples. I started with 5 samples per day, and we decided that we'll merge the urine and stool department also along with the microbiology section, so that at least I can have 15-20 samples per day. There were other services that was also involved, but then we should slowly shifted it out of microbiology. Cross training, we have certain technicians who are willing to get trained for other departments because they have some area of specialization, and it's very important when we during a crisis when there is no staff available. Extending phlebotomy services by hiring phlebotomists with driving license for home collection. This is very important. Home collection is a topic which I would like to take it separately, sit with everybody, and we can take a decision what to do about the home phlebotomy. And of course, clerical staff for microbiology lab, because the technician is busy typing reports for 4 to 6 hours, which is not productive at all. If you look at the contact list, this is what I was talking about, is that if you look into our contact list, there is no contact number for hematology lab, for biochemistry lab. There is one contact number for histopathology lab and PCR lab, but all other, these many technicians have resigned, their numbers are displayed here. But if a clinician wants to contact a biochemistry department, there is no number. If a clinician wants to contact hematology department, there is no contact. There is no supervisor's number. So this is basically the problem happens, that when the patient, the clinician calls, the phone keeps roaming around throughout the lab. Sometimes it goes outside the lab. Cath lab are involved. That cath lab list is there in laboratory contact list. Those phones are transferred to the laboratory as well. This is something we need to sit and sort out with the IT department. where we have the technician's name, the department, the specialty, and each section should have a contact number where the doctor should be able to contact for any purpose. Uh, the plan for staff recruitment is that we should recruit staff from uh, preference should be given if the patient if the technician has cap experience, the technician involved in some research work. It's very important. We should include staff from different nationalities. Equal number of male and female staff should be recruited, because there are times when probably we need to extend time, or work on a weekend on males. Women get very emotional at times, and there is a time, like where we have some who is not getting very emotional in the lab. Supervisors to be involved in the selecting of candidates very important, because technical interview can be only conducted by supervisor, because the bench work is not done by the pathologist. So that's where the supervisors come into picture. A database of all candidates interviewed to be maintained for future vacancy. In fact, my suggestion is that whenever anybody applies, like every day I get 2 and 3 CVs from the technician. So we should give them 5 to 10 minutes of interview time, and make a database with us for future vacancy or when we want to expand, rather than wait for a vacancy and then start searching for the staff. It takes long time to get a staff. Preference to be given for Varney technicians, mainly because I have personally trained around 20-25 Varney technicians, and they are par excellence. They have a 4 years bachelor's degree, and they are involved in publishing paper on when they are doing their bachelor's. That makes them very good with reference work. They are very good with data collection, data analysis. We have two technicians who have newly joined us, and they have helped me huge in data collection and data analysis, because it's part of their curriculum. So there should not be any apprehension when if there is a good Bharani technician available, I think we should recruit them. Staff training, as I said, that there are CAP guidelines where we have direct observation of what the technician is doing. Give them blind samples, give them quality control samples, assess them regularly. Not only the technical skill, problem solving skill, the emotional status of the technicians, communication skill is very important. Grooming skills are important. When the training happens, especially in microbiology, when they are trained, we make sure that I sit with them with a brief theory of the test. They are not blindly doing a technical work, but they know what they are doing basically and how it is going to affect the patient. So when they have this kind of a background, they are more they're less prone to make errors. We should start the training classroom for the laboratory, which has been converted into pantry due to COVID. But we need that classroom back so we can start common training. Pathology should be involved in technician training, especially the clinical aspects, interpretation of results, detecting common errors. That is one of the things. We have 2 hour session with all the new technicians in microbiology, where we make mistakes. What we learned in 20 years. This is the place we will make a mistake, or this is the place where probably a nurse can make a mistake in collection of sample. So they are more aware of these errors, and errors can be prevented. Inter and intra-department communication, as I said, that uh, first of all, you would like the pathologist to communicate to the lab the important cases that are discussed in the morning CME. So the technicians are aware of, these are the important cases that we need to be aware of, because technicians are absolutely, they don't know what is happening in the hospital, and there are complaints and errors day in and day out. Technicians must be actively involved in decision making of the laboratory, because it is they who are going to do the bench work, and if they are not involved, and a person who is working knows the best solution to that problem. So it's very important to ask them, okay, this is an issue, what do you think, what is your opinion on this, rather than telling them do this and do that. They don't like being instructed like this. Meetings must be held with every department in the hospital to discuss issue and then arrive at solutions offering better services. Minutes of the meeting to be made available to all the technicians in the lab whenever we have a meeting with the management or within the laboratory. Some might be absent, some might be on vacation, and what it leaves a huge gap. Error happens and the technician tells, "Oh, I was not aware. Is it like that? I don't know. I don't know about it. I was on vacation that time." So these gaps should be avoided by minutes of the meeting made available. As I said, there has to be separate phone number for biochemistry, hematology, serology. Probably with an email ID would be a better thing so that they can communicate directly. And the lot of wastage of time in transferring the phone from reception to the sections. I can hear the reception people shouting back to the hematology department that patient is asking for a report or doctor is asking for a report, and there are patients standing there for blood collection who can hear this commotion going on in the lab, which is not good. Lab orientation for all newly joined nurses and clinicians, and survey of reference lab and other hospital is very important. A peer review is extremely important to know what they are doing in the lab, how they are managing, a staff crisis or QC issues. A continuous communication is very important. One of the JCI guidelines also state that we must go and see the reference lab that we are sending our samples. What is their quality policy? How are they handling our samples? Are they giving good attention to our samples? So these are things part of the communication which can help laboratory function better. Decreasing staff attrition rate, which is very, very important. A huge study was conducted by ASCP, which involved 23 clinical laboratories. They wanted to know why the staff is leaving from the laboratory and what can be done to retain them. So the conclusion was that the laboratories which have a career path for technicians are able to retain the staff better than other laboratories. Why is it important that we should have a low attrition rate? Now, studies have shown that business with high staff turnover typically experience low employee morale and productivity rate. Definitely, when we have a new technician, the productivity is very low. A senior technician can process probably 100 samples in an hour, but a junior technician can process only 20. So the suggestion to reduce staff attrition rate is that we can have promotions like after 10 years in BSH, the technician can be promoted to a senior position. After 15 years, that technician can be a acting supervisor or deputy supervisor, then supervisor, the section in charge, quality officers. We can give them coordinator position. So the technician has something to look forward. A certified courses must be made mandatory before the promotion, because ASCP and CAP has lot of certified courses which are available, which the technician should be motivated to take up. There should, and I mean, of course, education loan of maybe 50 or 100 or 200 BD can help the technicians take these advanced courses in laboratory medicine. Staff must be encouraged to be involved in publishing research papers, and those who are involved in research must be given some supported with some incentives to boost their morale. Employee of the Month award. This needs to be started for the technicians. They have never been involved into the Employee of the Month award. 360-degree performance appraisal is very important, where the technicians get to rate their supervisors and vice versa. So it's not only the pathologist who's giving the rating for the juniors or the staff, but even the staff gets to rate their head of the departments, and this creates more harmony in the department, because everybody is in check that even the my junior will rate me one day, so I need to be polite and be kind to my staff. We should have a target revenue where the management can tell us that if you achieve these many samples, then you will get incentive. So what happens? It keeps technician motivated. Whenever we cross the threshold, if a small incentive also will keep the technician motivated and also create earning opportunities for the technicians. Coming to error handling in BSH laboratory, excuse me. Now, what happens is that I've been seeing past 20 years that whenever there is an error in the laboratory, there's always a panic which is being created. There's blame game. Nobody wants to take responsibility. There is fear. There is insecurity. The technicians don't perform the whole day. They are either crying or they are discussing. A whole day is wasted upon that, and finally they say it's too much. We are stressed, or we want to resign. But definitely, this is not a solution. So, what are the suggestions from CAP? that we need to first counsel the technician that errors are learning step, and they must be trained to come forward to accept and admit their errors, make a documentation, because basically whatever errors happen, we should classify them into analytical, post analytical, pre analytical. We need to analyze them and see probably there is a gap in our policy, or probably a gap in our training that is causing this error. We can use quality improvement tools like GMAC, Focus, PDCA to actually get to the root cause of the problem and solve the problem. As I said in microbiology, since we have started training the technicians regarding the most likely errors that can happen while processing samples, we have been able to almost nullify the errors that happen. I mean, we have not had a incident report past 20 years in microbiology section. Technicians should be made aware of the most common errors in each section during their training period itself. Rather than learning by trial and error, we can learn from already errors that have happened over past years, and that is the reason that documentation is very important, and classification, and then presenting it to the staff that these were the problems, this is how we solved it, and this is how we can prevent. Laboratory inventory management is a huge issue. A lot of losses because of expired items, excessive items. Again, if we go to the system, we need separate stores to be created in Medinos for biochemistry, hematology, serology. So we can track our expired items, we can track our inventory properly. We can have like a predictive analysis where we can see what was our consumption past 3 months or past year, and accordingly that we can go ahead placing our orders. Even during the year, the consumption fluctuates a lot. If you see in the winter season, there are particular tests which are more required. Like suppose rapid streptococcus antigen, I require 7 boxes kits per month. But the same in the summer, I need only 3 boxes per month. So there is a huge fluctuation. If you look at flu PCR, it peaks in winter, so probably we need to stock more kits. In summer, probably we need to stock more of gastro kits. But once we have this data, then only we will be able to predict and predictive consumption we can do. We should analyze our consumption every month. Regular meetings with reagent suppliers to streamline supplies. Communication with the supplier is extremely poor. They block our supplies without informing us. And we have told them many times that it is just a communication problem. Tell us that there is an issue, and we will definitely look into it. And finance has been so supportive for so many years. In 20 years in microbiology, I must say that we never had a situation where we had to stop a test because the reagent is not available. But it depends upon close communication with the supplier. Even if the payment is not clear, there are suppliers they arrange from other labs for the time being and on a loan basis, and we return it back when we get our supplies. So if we are good with our suppliers, they definitely help us. Policy and procedures in the laboratory, definitely, as JCI and CAP also suggest that whatever we are doing in the lab should reflect in our policy. If you look at our policies were made in 2010 and 2011. After that, we have never updated them. Not all technicians are trained to prepare policy and procedures. So when we start refreshing, every technician should be involved. Not only the senior is making the policy. And whenever we are introducing a test, we must make sure that first the policy is made and then we introduce the test. We have so many tests in the laboratory that the policy is still not available. Validation of CAP test, each test as per CAP guidelines, it's a huge exercise. That this is where the quality officer comes into the picture. Each test in the lab should undergo accuracy, precision, limit of detection, sensitivity, specificity, reference range. One test, it takes almost 20 to 25 days for validation. So imagine if you have like 300 tests, how huge that job will be, and it has to be repeated with every lot. And there are certain parameters which needs to be done with every lot of reagents that we receive. So this is the where the quality officer comes into picture. Marketing of PSH laboratory, though this is not my field, but still I have some suggestions. There are certain tests like gamma interferon, fungal cultures, Candida MIC. culture of fastidious organism, which we can, offer to other laboratories or if any clinician outside BH is interested. PCR test like gastroenteritis, pneumonia, STD, which is not available in many of the hospitals. Uh, we can have, we can invite the gastroenterologists from Bahrain, all over Bahrain, and we can present our data, and we can show them how our test, our PCR, our culture helps in better patient management. Or we can have one meeting with all the pulmonologists of Bahrain. We can have one meeting with all the pediatricians of Bahrain. So once the doctors come here, they see, how our tests, our way of working has makes a difference in patient care, they'll be more, motivated to send samples to us. We can have prior testing for OPD patients. We can charge them a little extra. There are some patients who don't like to wait till next day. They want to come and take the diagnosis and go home. So if they can avail this facility by paying a small amount, that also can be done. Infection control samples we can promote in clinics and other hospitals, especially clinics. If they want to do surface swabs, they want to do air counts, we can always accept those samples. Better marketing for histopathology lab, because our reporting is very, very good in histopathology lab. That can also be used for better marketing. And when I spoke about balance scorecard, this is what is required in balance scorecard. First is the customer's perspective. The goal is quality testing, fast turnaround time, effective reports, quality services. These are the goals, and we'll have measures like how many number of tests were done, what is the quality of the test, how many referrals, how many tests we repeated, what was the accuracy, what was our error rate, what was our how automated our lab is, how often, how soon we adapt to new technology. Our client satisfaction, internal business perspective is like client satisfaction, clinician satisfaction, what is our complaint rate, what is where is our, how periodically we evaluate ourselves, quality and currency of testing equipment, more point of care testing to be included, especially in emergency rate room. What is our cost per test? What is the budget allocated for hardware and software? Innovative and learning perspective, again, what new tests we are adding in a year, uh, how many how many employees are into training, how many are into further studies, whether they are attending conferences. So these are from innovative and learning perspective. Financial perspective, we can have adequacy of our budget, what are our cost per test, how much we are losing on expired reagents. We can have feedback from our doctors, what is the feedback from our clinicians, how many new insurance contracts we are having, what is our inventory level. These are all the goals, and we can have these KPIs, which will help us make the lab more efficient. So I know there are a lot of things which needs to be done, but we need to begin somewhere. And where do we begin? Is first and most important is having an organizational structure with revised staff responsibility and duty posting. It's very important that technicians. It's not only important that they come and run the sample and go home. There are many other aspects of the laboratory where the quality control reports are there, error handling is there, some documentation is there, data collection is there. So policy and procedures is there. When the staff has duties and responsibilities, they will definitely do it. Having a Gemba walk for the department, where we actually spend a whole day in the in one section, and you can see where we can improve the processes. Maybe we can make do without manual documentation, or maybe the phone calls are more. So maybe we'll see why there are so many phone calls in the laboratory in the lab. Probably the technician is not on the desk, or not coming on time. So, Gamba Walk will give us an overview of what's happening in that section and how we can improve it. Inter and intra-department communication needs to be started immediately, starting with the nurses, where they will be invited to the laboratory to see all the sections, and will communicate uh, face to face what problems we face with them. Home phlebotomy, as I said, needs to be discussed separately, because Every day, one technician breaks down in the laboratory, and I can see them sitting and crying in the pantry. It creates a very you know it's not a good atmosphere to work with, and then everybody is leaving the work and sitting with that technician, consoling that technician. And this is not what we come in the lab. Most of the time is spent in these issues. So home phlebotomy will definitely we need to discuss separately to make sure that we can come up with solution that we can continue with it also, and the lab is not disturbed. What do we need at present is we need our conference room where we can start having our meetings. We need an admin office, because right now what happens is that everybody is entering the laboratory, the suppliers, the marketing people, and people are not supposed to enter the laboratory ideally. So if we have an admin office, that is where the documentation can happen, and that is where we can, have our small meetings with our suppliers, or with when we have few people. And definitely we need some technical and clerical help in microbiology, because the workload is increasing and we three have not been able to manage the work. So, I mean, if we can get help from other sections of the laboratory, this will help us, work more smoothly and peacefully. Thank you very much for your attention. And this is the photograph from year 2003 when we first crossed 50 samples in the laboratory. We were a team of 8 or 9 people managing the entire laboratory. Thank you very much.